All right, Dr. Natalia, thank you for joining us today. Very big inspiration to me personally and for our channel. And I think the audience will really like this podcast episode. So thank you for taking the time. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Natalia is internal medicine specialist, also specializing in functional medicine and aesthetic medicine as well. And she's taken the time to join us today. So Dr. Natalia, why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And first of all, big congratulations to you to even be doing something like this. It's very exciting time to have your own podcast and, be that light and be the leader in your community and take the initiative and educate more people and inspire people um, with many different stories and guests that you have on your podcast. So thank you. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you again. So, why don't you talk a little bit about your background? How was your medical school and where did you do your medical school? And then further, how did you do your training?
Sure. So I am originally from Ukraine. I
Okay.
moved to Canada when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
So I didn't speak a lick of English. Like I didn't know
Wow.
anything about English. I just knew two words. Like my name is Natalia. That is a dog. So
Uh-huh.
I had to learn from the very beginning. And my family, I didn't come from like money or anything. I
Mhm.
actually used to clean houses at the very beginning with my mom as an immigrant,
Mhm.
student. My mom was very, very sick with hepatitis C, which she
Okay.
eventually got cured, thank God.
Okay.
So like my upbringing was pretty rough. And
Mhm.
I'm the only reason I'm only telling you all this is to like show you that, it's possible for people like
Yeah.
me who have the determination and most importantly, the discipline to just continue moving forward
Hmm.
to achieve your dream. So don't take no for an answer and don't get discouraged. And like I've been there. I've been the student who like, it gets so tiring and you get so unmotivated
Hmm.
and you just don't it feels like there's no end in sight, but I promise you it gets better after you're done with residency. It does get a lot better. So you guys just have to continue going. So I was in Canada and I moved there when I was 16.
Hmm.
I finished at the University of Toronto
Okay.
with honors in Bachelor of Science. I was
Wow.
in behavior genetics and neurobiology major. And then I decided to go to med school because my mom was very sick and,
Mhm.
it's a personal story.
Sure.
So then I'm like skipping a lot of steps, but
Yeah,
just
yeah, no
giving you
worries.
a little
Uh,
summary. Then I went to University of Medicine and Health Sciences, UMHS, in St. Kitts and
okay.
Nevis. I don't know if you heard about that school. Very
Mhm.
small
Okay.
boutique school. It's a school in the Caribbean, and for
Okay.
someone in the Caribbean, you know how it used to be. I don't know if it's still the same, but we used to get a lot of like stigma because, oh, you're from a Caribbean medical school.
Mm.
And which I would argue is even harder for us because then in order to match, you need to
Yeah.
compete with the whole US with other like IMGs,
Countries. Yeah.
international medical graduates, So your
Hmm.
scores and your extracurricular activities have to be pristine, right?
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
really focus on your step scores, really focus on your extracurricular activities, and just one of the tips I have for medical students is make sure you do your clinical rotations at hospitals that, they accept residents. So I like didn't even know about this.
Mm-hmm.
So in my third year of medical school, when you're supposed to be doing your clinical rotations,
Yeah.
I was at a hospital in Atlanta that they weren't even accepting residents. Like they didn't have a residency program.
Oh
They
wow.
had medical students. So imagine
Mhm.
basically that whole year was like wasted for me because I wasted an opportunity
Yeah,
to
to
like get
get to
to
know.
like to get to know the people,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So that's like one of the tips that I can give you guys. Make sure you just rotate at hospitals. They do residency programs and
Sure.
like shine there and be the first one to come, last one to leave. Like
Hmm.
be very nice and helpful to the residents. Because like as a resident, I remember having medical students and they were huge help. Like
Really?
yeah, you guys
Okay.
help out a lot. And then it's
Okay.
just like the smallest little things that, to you it might seem like, oh, like if we tell you like, oh, get a medication list from this family. For us, as residents, if you have like 20 patients, just like that one phone call, which is like, okay, 10, 15, 20 minutes, but it makes a world of a difference
Wow.
because like
Okay.
you guys help us out. So I'm just like giving you
Yeah, yeah.
pointers of how you can do better in rotations, which I'm sure you probably have questions about this later
Yeah.
on, but I like diverged and
No, no
started
worries,
with
no
like
worries.
where where I come from and I ended up in residency. So that's my story.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you kind of decided to do medicine from your personal story with your whole family situation. Was there any
Correct.
other like inklings that brought you into medical school, or was that the main reason?
Well, so how I ended up in like functional medicine and I grew up in Ukraine. Basically, every summer I would spend it on a farm at my
Cool.
grandma's house. So
Oh, wow.
I used to pick my own strawberries, my own raspberries, blueberries, mushrooms, like
Wow.
produce. And so I really started appreciating that like farm to table connection from a very young age. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw how much difference your own food makes in your
Mm-hmm.
health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I came to America, I'm like, everyone is sick here. What's going on? And it's the
Yeah.
food system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I became very passionate about prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's like number one thing I've learned in like 11 years of medical school and in my clinical practice and working at the hospital, is that prevention is key. And unfortunately, nobody spends time on that because there was no money in it back in the
Exactly.
day. But
Mm-hmm.
but now, like the reason why I started my Instagram channel and like my following and my social media is to inspire people to show how to live
Mm.
happier, healthier lives and just be an example and I do what I preach, like I
Yeah.
eat healthy, I exercise, I take the supplements, and unfortunately with the food system that we have nowadays, we don't have any nutrition from it, so we have to supplement.
Of
So
course.
I'm taking all these preventative health measures to kind of educate and show people. And that's how my passion for functional medicine grew. And that's when I
Mm.
found the whole like branch that functional medicine does not just because people don't know what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
functional medicine focuses on the root cause of the problem and instead of just like masking the symptoms as a traditional allopathic
Mm-hmm.
Western medicine would just give, oh, you have a high blood pressure, here's
Give
the
medicine.
medications, lisinopril, losartan, whatever, to just kind of mask the symptoms. But nobody actually fixes the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is you probably have to drop about 10 to 20 pounds and your blood pressure is going to go down naturally, But we're not taught
Yeah.
that in medical school. We don't have
Exactly.
nutrition courses in medical school, which
Mm-hmm.
is very sad and it makes me really mad. So like part of my long-term plan is hopefully to have like implement some of these changes in medical schools and
100%.
introduce like nutrition courses. Yeah.
100%. I totally agree. Ever since I learned about like food wellness when I was like 12, 13 years old, I've been just spiraling learning about how bad our system is in terms of food. But question for you is, so I understand functional medicine. It's all focused on prevention, making people's lives better. But in terms of reality, how does that work in the American system today? Do you have like an office? How do you play this
Mhm.
functional medicine specialist?
So I'm actually um, playing a constant battle between
Sure.
the two because I am working at a traditional hospital as a locums physician, and we can
Okay.
talk about that. I can tell
Sure, sure.
people a little bit about it, what
Hmm.
it is. It's not a traditional like W-2 employee that you
Okay.
work for the hospital. I basically make my own schedule. I work whenever I want. I pick up shifts whenever I want. So I work for like a week at a time, then I don't have to work for 3 months if I don't want to. So like I love the
Interesting. Okay.
freedom of it.
Okay.
And it's also very lucrative compared to a
Yeah.
traditional W-2 job
Hmm.
because you're a 1099 and you're gonna start learning all these
Yeah,
things. But
of
I'm
course,
like,
of
I
course.
wish somebody told me about this when I was a medical student. That's why I'm telling you
Yeah,
guys this.
yeah.
As a 1099, you are your own employee, you have your own business. I have my
Hmm.
own business.
Hmm.
So while I am working at the hospital and,
Hmm.
prescribing antibiotics because it's the protocol, I'm constantly like, I'm going against my own beliefs of what
Yeah.
I believe in. Um, Functional medicine, of course, I think our traditional healthcare system is only good for acute conditions or
Mm.
like surgeries or ICU, but in terms of chronic management, it's absolutely
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
So when I see a patient comes in with like 30 different medications, I'm just like,
Yeah.
all of
Why?
this could have been prevented.
Yeah.
So, and in my free time when I'm off, I'm building my own practice, I'm building my own brand, Dr. Natalia, I'm building my social media following. I have my own telemedicine practice where I see my private patients, and that's when
Oh,
I
nice.
implement my functional medicine. So everything, like hormone optimization, peptide therapy, anti-aging, longevity, microbiome optimization, supplements. So everything that's like exciting, preventative, and
Yeah.
what I personally believe in and where I've seen the most difference, actually.
Wow, wow. I'm gonna dive into that if you don't mind. I'm very
Sure, of
interested in
course.
that side.
Yep.
So you have this telemedicine private practice, you're getting these patients in. How does that work with the, I mean, I'm sure you can't bill insurances for that because that's probably
No.
not what they're,
Yeah.
so you have to bring in people who can afford that are wanting to get preventative medicine, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so how do you even attract, how do you get the word out to the average person that they should need to do preventative medicine?
So I think perks of having social media nowadays, a
Mm,
lot more people are becoming more aware of these
yeah,
issues. And I hate the word woke, but like
sure.
when I
That's,
live in
mhm.
Miami, so a lot, and like I'm sure in California as well, where
Mm,
you are, a lot more people are tending to focus on prevention nowadays, especially
it's
people
true.
like our age, because
Mm,
traditional medical system has failed us.
mm,
Uh, the most common cause of death is America is the third one is medical error. So we don't
mm,
even know what we're doing. With AI, I know a lot of jobs will be displaced as
mm,
physicians, and for good reason. Like, I mean, it should be at least implemented because it does a lot more computing and like reasoning as a physician. AI can read like 60,000 papers in
yeah.
10 seconds. And how many papers can a physician read in a day? Maybe two.
Mm,
So I am like excited about what's going to happen in the future. I don't think it's going to completely displace the physicians, but people will be displaced if they don't implement AI in
sure.
their workforce. So, and in terms of functional medicine, a lot of people, like my friends, started reaching out to me because they know I'm very passionate about
Mm,
it. And then, word of mouth. And then I go to conferences a lot, and
wow.
people talk to me, and then like they get my contact, they see what I do, they reach out, they end up being my patients. So, yeah, but it all comes down to like marketing, which I haven't done any heavy marketing because I'm just like slowly transitioning into this.
Sure, sure.
Um, so I'm not trying to take too much on, but as when I cut back on my locums job, I'm like
Yeah.
gonna build up my clientele
Okay.
in functional medicine. But yeah, it is a more um, it's not medicine for everybody, unfortunately, because it is more expensive.
Yeah.
But the things that I teach on my Instagram are free, and things like sunlight, good food,
Mm,
like light sunlight exposure. You don't need all these fancy like supplements, gadgets all the time if you have access to like clean water and good food. With the number one investment, I would say, just make sure you buy like organic and good food whenever you
mm.
can. And I cook all of my meals at home. Like when I'm at work, I'm traveling, I still cook my meals at
Really?
home, like
Wow.
bring them in glass containers. So it's all about discipline and your priorities.
Mm,
Somebody told me like, oh, like functional medicine or being healthy is so expensive. And I just asked them the question, well, have you tried being sick? Do you
mm,
know the hospital bills that
yeah.
come with your sickness? Like hospital stay can be 10, 20, $30,000 a night. So like the choice
Wow.
is yours, it's all about priorities.
100%, 100%. On that, a little more technical for people like me interested in a possible future in functional or lifestyle medicine, do you think it's something you can make a living salary off of if you have enough clientele?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it can be
Okay.
a very lucrative um, job, and
Okay.
it is like, I charge for my consults. I don't charge them as much as I should just because I'm like
Yeah, you're building it.
still building and like getting started. But like some of these consults go for as high as like $1,000 per hour.
Oh, okay.
Some of the functional like top functional doctors like Dr. Mark, I forgot his last name. Houston. He charges $3,000 to $4,000
Wow.
because he's a cardiologist in functional medicine. So
Wow.
per consult. So per hour, and it's not insurance based, but it's very well worth the
Mm,
money,
mm, mm,
because a traditional doctor will like a lot of people come from traditional doctors to me, and like I'm sometimes embarrassed because I'm not trying to like make anyone look bad, but like our medical school system is set up in a way that if we see cholesterol of 220,
mhm.
okay, you're getting on the statin right
Yeah.
away. But they don't differentiate between like particle cholesterol, good or bad cholesterol, ApoA, ApoB. Um, did you know that like you should be looking at triglyceride to HDL ratio? If it's
Mm,
like less than 1.5, then cholesterol is irrelevant. You're gonna live forever. Like, so there's all these
mm.
like nuances that you
Wow.
learn in functional medicine world versus traditional books and like pharma heavy
Interesting.
driven medical education. So yeah, you can
How,
definitely make a career out of it. Yes.
okay, okay. And how long is training, like 1 or 2 years after residency, or is it a full 3 years?
So for me, it never truly felt like training because I was always like reading, even in medical
Yeah.
school. I would spend like before studying for steps, I would catch myself in the morning. I'm like reading about supplements, like what can I do for adrenal fatigue? Oh, people don't
Yeah.
even realize, oh, adrenal fatigue, oh, it's like whatever diagnosis, it's not real. Like vitamin C, what doses? And so, and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to study for steps. Like I close it all. So I was very like interest just for my own health because I had my own health issues. So I constantly wanted to just kind of, I made it like my own hobby.
Hmm,
And then I was like, oh my God, this is actually can be a career and there is a path. But the traditional, I know there is a fellowship right now, I
sure,
think at the University of Arizona, which is 2 years. I went through A4M, which is American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine.
sure. Okay.
Um, so I did a fellowship with them. It's about like a year, but it's online modules. You do
Nice.
your own pace, and it's just lectures. So I took my exam in December in Vegas at the
Hmm.
biggest conference that I go to every year, and I like
Okay.
highly recommend you guys go there too if you're into
Okay.
this space. A4M conference in Vegas. It's every December, I think December 13th to 15th.
Okay.
So I took my written exam there, and I actually have my oral exams coming up in April and at
Nice.
that same conference, but it's going to be in West Palm Beach in Florida, so it's close by.
Okay.
And yeah, basically, I am triple board certified in internal functional aesthetic medicine now, and yeah, I love it.
Why don't you talk briefly a little bit about aesthetic medicine? I have no clue about that space.
So aesthetic medicine, when people think like aesthetics, they only think like fillers, Botox,
Mm,
and like very superficially about it. And
mm,
the field I'm very passionate about is actually anti-aging and
mm.
longevity. And
Sure. Okay.
anti-aging is always perceived like, oh, you're so shallow, you live in Miami and you just want to look pretty. But aging actually comes from within. And like
Yeah.
all of these if you think about it, cancer, dementia, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, these are all age-related diseases because as we age, there's multiple theories of aging, but some people are saying that aging should actually be classified as a disease itself because all of these other ones are related to aging. So we're aging from within. And I always say the beauty starts from within. So if your gut is not working correctly, then your hormones are out of whack, your serotonin, your mood, depression, anxiety, poor focus, brain fog, fatigue, like it all comes from the gut. So you have to fix the gut. And
Mm.
that's where the beauty comes from within, right?
Yes.
So, and then of course, like in terms of aesthetics, you have all these like laser therapies, photo body modulation, red light therapy,
Mm.
ozone therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, like methylene blue, all these supplements. So it's all what I call these are all like behavioral stacking. So I wear my blue light blocking glasses. I took them off for the podcast, but like
Yeah.
all of this stuff, yeah, I'm
All
like
of this.
super passionate about it.
Wow.
So
Oh,
yeah,
th
it's very
this
interesting.
relates to Dr. Brian Johnson, the anti-aging, and what's the other guy? Gary Brecka. Yeah, he talks about
Yeah,
it. Yes.
so I know both of them. I'm actually going to Brian Johnson's conference. He's going to be here in Miami. I'm going to
Oh,
dinner with him
wow.
like the night before. And I know his doctor who did gene therapy. So we met at the conference. We were talking.
Wow.
Um, yeah, he was on documentary. So it's a very like small
It is a small
space,
field. Yeah.
but you know everybody. And Gary Breck, I met him at the conference at A4M.
Oh, wow.
Amazing, amazing human being. So.
How long does aesthetic medicine take? Is that also online in a year?
Yeah, so that was actually in person, but I did
Mm,
get educated in like Botox and fillers, and that's not something I personally like. There is a place for that. I don't personally like
practice it.
want to do that because I feel
Sure.
like the market is so overly saturated and they're very widely available to pretty much everybody. You don't need to be a physician to do
Yeah, of
injectables.
course. Of course.
Um, so n nothing against that. It's just like not my thing.
Hmm.
Maybe it will be in the future because I do believe, like with the photo damage and everything that you need lasers to, even
Sure.
like Brian Johnson, he talks about laser therapy and
Mm,
stuff. So you can get younger from the outside if you don't do some of these cosmetic procedures. And, living in Miami, like we have the we have the market for it.
yeah,
Let's
you
just put
do.
it
You
that way.
do. You do. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you're saying if because what you said is the exact passions. I'm always trying to like learn about eating healthier, keeping yourself stable, making yourself be able to live a quality life, kind of anti-aging as well. You're saying functional medicine and aesthetic medicine kind of complement those things.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But it's very easy to get caught up in all the latest like skincare, fibroblasts, exosomes,
Yeah.
serums, stem cells, and it can cost like thousands of dollars. But again, like if you are a medical student, you don't have the means, and some medical students have the means. The only things you need is discipline.
Hmm.
Make your own meals, like cook healthy, and make sure you get good sleep and exercise.
Yeah.
Like even if you can't exercise, just go for a walk, get some sunlight, like in the morning, not direct sunlight, like use
Sure,
sunscreen.
sure.
But those are my like three pillars that everything else kind of builds on top of that. But the foundation of your anti-aging longevity house is your sleep,
Hmm.
food,
Hmm.
and exercise.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit,
Mhm.
very briefly talking about this. How has it been learning about establishing your own business? How has it been going on that route instead of doing the traditional method of medicine?
Yeah, so I always knew that, I cannot work for anybody. I want to be my own boss. And some people,
Yeah,
like a lot of my friends, they work in like a traditional hospital system. They're
sure.
happy, like they need to be told what to do or like have like certain parameters. Building your own business is no joke. Like
Yeah, yeah.
especially for someone coming from a different country, like I didn't know anything about all of these like retirement plans, like
Mm.
SEP IRA, 401k, la la la, all of this. I'm like, what is this? Like, I have no idea. Then taxes and doing your own accounting, bookkeeping. Then I just ended up hiring somebody because I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Then marketing. So, I always say like I have five jobs. My hospital, my functional medicine, private clients, social media. And I'm actually working with 10X Health too.
Oh, you
So
work with 10X as well.
yeah, I just recently joined with them.
Wow.
So I have a lot of like different, niches. Um, oh, and I'm a medical director for one of the IV clinics now too.
Wow.
So
Nice.
I am very like proactive when it comes to these things. So yeah, business, like, I thought about taking business courses. I thought about, and I'm just like, honestly, if you find good podcasts, we have so much
We
access
do.
to
We do.
free, amazing information online. I never grew up in a household of entrepreneurs. My family is very traditional in the way, like,
Mm.
have a job, go to
Yeah.
work. They're also doctors, but in Ukraine,
Mm.
and they work for the hospital. So I had to kind of, and I was never in the circle of like business people. So
Sure,
I just
sure.
like had to create it for myself. And
Mm.
with the access that we have to information every day,
Hmm.
it's widely available on YouTube. You go listen to Cody Sanchez or Peter Diamandis or
Right.
Alex Hormozy or Tom
Amazing.
Bilyeu
Yeah.
or like Diary of a CEO is my
Yeah.
absolute
Yeah.
favorite podcast. So, and they have so much insight from all these amazing people, and it just like makes your neuronal connections like click at some point. So that's how I've
Totally.
been, and it's still a like work in progress,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're
Exactly.
constantly learning every day.
Yeah. It's a never-ending cycle. There's always so
Right,
much more to learn.
right, absolutely.
I'll ask another personal question since you just mentioned
Sure.
it. 10X Health, how is it working for them? Do you get paid by them? I just wanted to know how that worked when you partner with there.
Yeah. To be completely honest and transparent, I like literally yesterday was my
Oh,
very
okay.
first
Okay.
day,
Gotcha.
and that's why you were like, what time works for you? I'm going to
Uh-huh.
see patients from 2 to 5 with
Okay.
them.
Okay.
So it is a telemedicine based
It's a telemedicine. Okay.
system as well. So I can't tell you much right now because it's
Sure.
very much of what I do with my patients, just like history
Okay.
taking, and you like prescribe hormones. The only thing I would say is that in my own practice, I have a lot more variability in terms of like peptide therapy, right? So I'm very like heavy on peptides, and with 10x, as of right now, they're a little bit limited with their peptide choices
Hmm.
just because of the FDA regulations. Last year, FDA banned a bunch of therapeutic peptides that were injectable. So
Hmm. Okay.
um, yeah, so we have to work with like research peptides. But,
Gotcha.
the patients know about this. So today is going to be my second
It's
day with 10x.
okay. Okay. So it's something I'll probably have to catch up on and ask you again.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question we have before we start wrapping this up is what would you tell yourself like 10 years ago? Maybe you're in the middle of med school. What advice would you give your younger self 10 years ago?
I would say I would hug myself. I
Hmm.
would be like, everything's going to be okay. You're going to make it. I'm still like in the process of constantly like, let's go. We have to make it. We have to make it. But I would probably be like, don't be so hard on yourself because I'm a perfectionist and I hold myself to the highest standards and I expect the same from others. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, it's hard because when you expect a certain level of execution and excellence, you end up being disappointed. And I get disappointed in myself sometimes if I like, oh, I didn't do it well
Hmm.
enough, and I'm very hard on myself. So the number one regret, they interviewed these people,
Hmm.
end of life
Yeah.
on their deathbeds. The number one regret they said, like, don't be so hard. I wish I wasn't so hard on myself. I wish I spent more time with family, and I wish I did what I wanted to do, not
Yeah.
what like society told me to do. So
Hmm.
there's a lesson there.
Those are some good answers. Great, great. I'm going to ask you a question that was left for you from the previous guest.
Sure.
Previous guest said, "What hobbies did you have when you were studying for your boards? Like, what kept you motivated outside of board studying during that dedicated period?"
So I'm just gonna like destroy people's dreams right now because there is no such thing as motivation. Like I think it all comes down to discipline. For
Yeah,
me, rain or shine, like I wake up, I go to the gym. I don't care if it's just for 15, 20 minutes. I need to get myself. When people are like, oh, how do you have the energy to go to the gym? I don't even think about, like, I know my
yeah,
brain is gonna play tricks with me the minute I start like thinking about it.
yeah.
I just get up and go. And then next thing I know, I'm there. I'm like, okay, I have nothing else to do. So that was my motivation, was my discipline. I had my routine. I knew I had to wake up at 6. I go to the gym. That was like my me time to just kind
Hmm.
of like recollect my thinking and then, make my breakfast. And then at 8 a.m., I would do my blocks of questions. And then the rest of the day, I would review them. And then at the end of the night, I would just like watch, like listen to a podcast and go for a walk. And you have to understand that your life is in seasons.
Hmm.
And that is just a season of your life for two
Yeah,
months where you have to study very heavy. And it will be over at some point.
exactly.
Like that is your end in sight. Just like right now, I'm like traveling for my job. I work nights at the hospital, so it's not like the easiest thing to do, but I tell myself it is a season in my life,
Hmm.
and it will be over. But that experience I'm given to me for in order for me to achieve greater and bigger things. So it's all part of the experience, part of the journey. Don't give up, discipline. You got this.
Perfect, perfect answer. And then, would you have a question you'd like to ask the next guest that comes onto the podcast?
Yes, I would like to ask if you could implement one health change for Americans, what would it be? What would like health policy would you implement? What would the change you'd like to see if you were able to make that change?
Very, very good question. I think a very few people will be able to answer that, but I think it's a very good question. I like that.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank
Okay.
you, Dr. Natalia. Thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot personally, and I know a lot of people listening will learn a lot as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kartik. If you want part two, let me know.
Will do.